And we're live from the living room as Doug eyes up the matchday spread. He's reaching for the buffalo wing. Perfect! Hang on, what's this? Oh, he's gone for a can of Pepsi too! Incredible! What a finish! Sensational combination! Look at the delight on his face. There's no doubt about it. It just tastes better. Match days deserve Pepsi. Food deserves Pepsi. Grab a pack of Pepsi Zero Sugar for today's match. It's poetry in motion.
Today I'm going to be talking about something that gets asked, again, as usual, in the Facebook group quite frequently and usually has incorrect answers. So I want to make this perfectly clear so that everybody understands what is going on when somebody asks about fire suppression. Hi, and welcome to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. My name is Bill Moore. I'm the Executive Director of the National Street Food Vendors Association, which is a nonprofit dedicated to education, advocacy, and uplifting all food vendors. Before we get into today's subject about fire suppression, I want to remind you guys I'm going to be in Austin, Texas on August the 4th and 5th as a part of the Food Truck Hunters Expo. I'm going to be giving a whole bunch of classes. Going to be out on the main expo floor in my National Street Food Vendors Association booth. I'm going to do a couple of other things throughout the afternoon there at the expo, so please come join us. We're going to have an absolutely great time. If you would like to attend and you're not already a member of the National Street Food Vendors Association, please, you can use code NSFVA15 and get a 15% discount. But if you're a member of our association, check out your most recent newsletter and you'll find some details on how you can get yourself a free ticket. So please come see us in Austin, Texas. Either way, that's going to be August 4th and 5th at the Food Truck Hunters Expo. So let's talk specifically about fire suppression. Fire suppression comes up very frequently, and then people will always comment, that's why I'm electric, don't need fire suppression. That's why we use batteries, don't need fire suppression. That's why we use solar, don't need fire suppression. Or they'll list off Jackery or EcoFlow or some of the other battery options out there as if all of a sudden they're exempt from needing fire suppression. So here's the real simple, if you don't want to listen any more than just the next 10-15 seconds, here's the answer to that question. Fire suppression is not determined by your power source. Fire suppression is determined by what? Your cooking process, the equipment you have on board, the ventilation that you have on the food truck, and the risk of fire that you potentially create. Notice that it doesn't say, if you got a battery, you're okay. Because what catches on fire is not the propane, because you can walk outside and turn that off. What catches on fire is the grease that you've allowed to get too hot and it flashes. Nothing to do with propane, because guess what? Electric gets just as hot. A food truck can be powered by a gas generator. It can have a propane generator. It can have shore power, solar power, have batteries, or some combination of all that. Those power sources need to be used safely, but you know what? They don't change whether you need fire suppression. What changes is perhaps the wiring that you have, perhaps the ventilation needs that you have, and they also create carbon monoxide, some of them, so you got to understand how to handle that. They matter for overload protection, and they matter where your equipment is placed, but they do not help you decide whether you need fire suppression or not. That is dependent upon what you cook and how you cook it. So the question is never what powers the food truck. The question is always, what are you cooking, how are you cooking it, and what kind of fire hazard does that cooking create? Cooking, not the fuel to cook with. So if you have a fryer, a flat top, a charbroiler, a range, a wok, or anything else that produces grease, the concern is not whether your food truck is powered by batteries or the sun or being Fred Flintstone and running around on the street in bare feet. What matters is the grease-laden vapors, if there's a potential for them to flash, which comes from high heat, and the cooking surfaces as well as the hood that you have. All of that adds up to a potential for fire or a less potential for fire. A vendor can say, I don't even use a gas generator. Guess what? You still need a hood. Still need fire suppression, because it doesn't matter what you're powered by. Absolutely does not matter. In all the time that I've been working, going on nearly 50 years, I have never had to pull an Ansel system in any restaurant, never even actually pulled a pin on a portable fire extinguisher. Well, that doesn't mean that we haven't set stuff on fire. It means that I don't panic. The only 2 times I've ever had even a small fire in a restaurant was at the fryer. And guess what kind of fryers we had? Electric. 2 different times. Set the surface of the shortening on fire because I wasn't paying attention to where the elements were. And when you set the surface of the shortening on fire, obviously you got to throw the shortening away because now you're burning it. But most people panic because that's 35, 40 pounds worth of shortening that's now on fire. Problem is, the only thing that's on fire is what's inside it. So if it's not been scooped out or cleaned out, then yeah, all the little crumbs and stuff that's inside that shortening are going to burn. So what do we do to put it out? We lifted the element out of the shortening and got them away from the shortening. So now the shortening is cooling off and it went out in a minute or so. What causes a fire is excess heat. If you actually go to look up how do you make a fire, fuel, oxygen, and heat. Not fuel, oxygen, and propane. Fuel, oxygen, and heat. The grease that your food creates is the fuel. Oxygen is there, otherwise you wouldn't be alive to set it on fire. And then high heat. Not propane, not charcoal, not the wood that goes in the barbecue. High heat. So the next time you read a Facebook post and somebody says, yeah, just get yourself all electric, you won't need a hood. Well, they're wrong. People assume because when you cook with gas or you cook with propane, there's little bitty flames, and that's why you need a hood. That is not why you need a hood. Just think about where the nozzles are pointed if that was true. Where are the nozzles pointed? At the surface of the grill or the fryer or the griddle or whatever it is that you're using. If they were worried about the propane, the nozzles will be directed where? Where the flames are. Sometimes you wonder about people and their ability to think things through. On average, just to scare a few people, on average there's at least 1 fire per week, all during the busy season. The majority of those fires are from the owner doing something stupid. And there's no other way of saying it. Propane is heavier than air. So if you've left the propane tank open and you've left the pilot lights on and they blow out throughout the night, there's probably going to be propane inside your food truck or food trailer at the floor level. So when you walk in and you step into it, you smell and go, oh, there's propane. Again, heavier than air, so it's below your nose. You go, oh, I just must have been dreaming. Then you bend down to light the pilot light for the fryer and you ignite all the pooled propane. Or you have an automatic system with an igniter and you're pushing that button, creating that spark, which sets off the propane. Pooled propane will flash immediately, and because it's now flashing, it has to expand, which means you're going to be enveloped in a fireball. And if there's enough propane to continue to fuel that fireball, it's probably going to blow the walls off of your food trailer. If it's built securely enough that it can actually hold in the pressure temporarily. Many food trucks aren't that well built, so when the explosion happens, it has room to escape through all the cracks and crevices that aren't sealed properly by builders that are not high quality builders. Now you just have an inside that's scorched to death. Propane gets blamed a lot as the reason that people need fire suppression. I've already explained to you, it is not the only reason. Propane creates serious safety issues. It absolutely does. We just talked about leaks and explosions, creates carbon monoxide. And of course, there is an open flame risk. So you have to be kind of careful. But that's not what makes you need to have a hood. A battery system can cause a fire if the batteries are damaged or overloaded or improperly charged. Why do you think the FAA does not allow you to have one of those little portable power banks for your cell phone in your luggage? Because it could catch on fire. So they want you to have it on your person so you can catch on fire. Food truck owners tend to create their own issues too, because they have often, I've seen this very frequently, they will often use undersized cords to go from the generator to whatever they're trying to power on the food truck. And they have opted for the least expensive cord out there. Oh, I need 100-foot worth of cord. Well, I'm going to get the cheapest one I can find. It's your investment. Why would you buy undersized cords to run power? Because guess what happens if they're undersized? They get hot and then they will short out and cause fire. Gas generator can be a fire source because it's hot and it's got fuel. You got the exhaust pouring out someplace, and if it's allowed to pool, now you've got a carbon monoxide issue. More people die using a generator during the hurricane than they do from the actual hurricane itself, because we have all kinds of warnings and people leave. But the ones that don't leave don't have any power, so what do? They grab the generator, throw it in the garage, turn that baby on, and then end up suffocating because they're not allowing the thing to breathe like it's supposed to. Solar power can introduce electrical hazards just as easily, especially if it's installed incorrectly. If there's a lot of charge controllers or batteries and wiring and fuses and inverters, you have all different kind of options for there to be problems. Plus, just solar panels in general get hot. So unless they're on the roof of your vehicle and you set them out portably, oh look, I'm going to be efficient and show everybody I use solar. Let one kid walk up and touch one of those panels. It's hot. You better have really, really good insurance. So the power sources matter, but not for your question about the hood. What matters when it comes to a hood is what you're cooking and how you're going to cook it. It bothers me when people say, how can I avoid fire suppression? What the better question is, if you're going to be a responsible business owner that plans on going beyond 1 or 2 seasons, what does my menu require for me to cook, and what are the safest systems that are required to do that legally? What does my menu have on it? How am I going to cook it? And how can I cook it safely? That's what you need to know. And if it has a potential to create grease, and then that grease has a potential to be ignited, again, from high heat, not an open flame, guess what? You need a hood and you need fire suppression. Don't get into business looking to be cheap. Cheap causes a lot of pain. You won't be able to grow as a business. You won't be able to flourish at all because you're always worried about, let's do things cheap. Let's do things better than anybody else. So if your menu requires frying or grilling or sauteing or producing any kind of grease-laden vapor, the lovely term the health department always uses, then you need to have a hood and most likely fire suppression because, again, grease-laden vapor is what? The fuel that can be ignited by what? High heat. Now, if you're thinking, well, I'll never cook above 350, you're lying to yourself because you will. But let's just say you're disciplined enough to never, ever do it. That doesn't mean that the piece of equipment that you're using will never, ever fail. I've seen fryers go to over 450 because of thermostat issues and the owner didn't know a thing about it. I have seen in restaurants, chain restaurants, where they actually use high quality grills, the grill get out of calibration to where they're turning it to 380, thinking that's what they're cooking at, and it was almost 500. And at 500, you're going to flash any kind of grease that pools. So don't think you're better, because that's going to be the first thing that gets you in trouble. Thank you guys so much for listening to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. If you're finding everything helpful that we do, please consider subscribing. If you love what we do, then please go to nsfba.org. Join our association today. We've got a whole bunch more training there, all kinds of spreadsheets and contracts and videos that you can watch to help you get better at being a profitable and responsible food truck owner.